going down to Occupy Wall Street was, after reading all the press and seeing all the promotion, how stunningly few people were actually down there. This is a movement people are talking about in historical contexts, and the park certainly doesn't fit more than 5,000 people. At any given point in time, there's less than probably 2,000 people. And the movements that people are comparing this to are movements that originated in Spain a year ago, where there were hundreds of thousands of people on the streets, or in Egypt, or Yemen, or Syria, or Italy, or Israel. In Israel, the protest movement that developed over the summer, which is worth talking about, at one point came to involve 10% of the population. So in a country of, depending on how you count, 6 to 8 million people, as many as 10% of the people participated at one moment in time. And here in the United States, even though the Occupy Wall Street movement has taken on the form of protests in cities throughout the country, the numbers are shockingly small. And then there's the issue, if you actually go down there, that it becomes difficult to appreciate what the message is of these people when you read their signs and you listen to the stories. There are protests, there are signs in favor of animal rights. There are signs in favor of the right ingredients in food. There's protests against unfair lending practices and issues related to the debt crisis and bailout. The lack of a single coherent message, which I think has been somewhat touched upon in the press, but is painfully obvious to anyone who's gone to any of these protests, makes you wonder, does this thing have any staying power? So the topic is social media, and where is all of this going? Here's what I think is unique about the protests today, and here's where I think this is going. This is not the first time in history that there have been profound economic or political grievances around the world. This is not the first moment in time that there were authoritarian regimes in the Arab world, or even the allegation of corruption in parts of the Western world. And yet these protests have all synthesized in the past year with alarming speed from nothing. And the only thing that can be attributed to is the fact that everyone in these countries has a cell phone. And that's it. Literally, that's it. There's no other fundamental dynamic that makes 2011 unique other than the fact that all of these people have cell phones. And coupled with the cell phones is not just the ability for people to text one another, but for people to organize almost spontaneously on properties like Twitter or Facebook. And the result is you had massive protests. You began to see it in Iran, and actually you saw it in the Ukraine in their orange, in the Orange Revolution, and then you saw it in Iran. Iran ultimately failed. But there's this sense of this inexorable tide that if people can organize spontaneously, that they'll be able to affect profound change. That's what makes 2011 unique. So what does that mean for the United States and the Occupy Wall Street movement? It's very clear to me that if this movement can generate a single coherent message, there is the ability to organize massive numbers of people like never before. So for those of you who are on Facebook, there are Facebook applications that have the ability where they come out of nowhere and put together groups of 20 or 30 or 40 million people over total and utter nonsense. And if that same virality, that same schema that's used on Facebook or Twitter were to be applied to a movement like this around a single issue, it strikes me as fairly inevitable that there will be 10% of the United States participating in the movement. Now,